my dear old friends, Miss Surya and of course Miss Ari. So, in this occasion, I would like to invite you to discuss with me related to the effectiveness of using poetry as a tool to developing English proficiency of English language learners by reflecting from Emily Dickinson's poem. The title is There is No Frigate Like a Book. All right, let's start it. So, as we know, literature is not just about the beautiful writing, but more than that. Literature has significant roles, especially as a tool in developing English proficiency. And using literature offers students with a fundamental means to expand their linguistic knowledge, as many literary texts focus on different aspects of language such as grammar and the vocabularies. And also, literature helps learners to become familiar with various usage of the language. And the common literature genre, we know there are prose, poetry, and drama. But in this case, we just focus on the effectiveness of using poetry as a tool to developing English proficiency of English language learners by reflecting from Emily Dickinson poem, There is No Frigate Like a Book, 1286. Okay, but based on survey that we have in previous meeting, there are 60% students in 3A class confused or say analyzing poetry is kind of a difficult thing and make they confused or hard to understand with their vocabulary and expression and of course the pronunciation. But in this case, I believe that poetry is valuable and effective search in improve English vocabulary and pronunciation of learners. So why I say that? Okay, without any further ado, let's start our discussion today. Okay, but before we start, I want to share my reason why I choose this poem, Emily Dickinson poem. It's because this poem is a short poem, but have a lot of meaningful, and I think that's still relevant with our needs in this era and relates with our education about the importances of reading. Wow, I think you are still confused about why this poem is related with the education and can relate with language learners or language learning, of course. So here I want to give you some point of importances of poetry as a language learning tools and the relates with Emily Dickinson's poem, of course. Okay, the first one we have poetry is an authentic material. The second one we have poetry gives learners to improve their vocabulary. And the third one, poetry gives learners the chance to improve their pronunciation. And the fourth, poetry gives learners the chance to improve their motivation and learners' creativity. All right, that's really amazing. But stop right there. I will explain you one by one till you agree with me. All right. All right, I have here Emily Dickinson poem, as you can see in this slide. Just a moment. Okay, I hope you see clearly. All right. Okay, the first one, we will discuss about the authentic material. Okay, poetry is a valuable authentic material which motivates students to learn the language in energetic, enjoyable, and motivating way. And according to Mitchell 2014 deems that what makes poetry so special is its language. That's a really important point. Its language. For example, poetry uses metaphorical language to convey the intended meaning, and then poetry employs various way to transfer the writer's ideas and feelings, such as using similes, imaginary synonyms, expressions, symbols, and metaphor. Okay, let's look at the Emily Dickinson poem and focus on the first line. We see there is no frigate like a book. From that we can analyze this poem is tell about the importances of reading. And reading is the fastest transportation who can get you anywhere, even compare with frigate. Okay, I know you're still confused with frigate. Frigate means a small, a fast military ship or a boat. From this, we can see and we can learn everywhere we are. With book, we can go anywhere we want. So that relates with our education. We can learn with any tools and learn the meaning of some new vocabulary and try to relate them, and we get the concrete meaningful just from one lines. Okay, that's really amazing, right? Just we don't stop right there. We will discuss the second point here. So the second point is improve their vocabulary. All right. The effects of teaching vocabulary, though through poetry-based activities in a EFL classroom, I believe that's more enjoyable, encouraging, and motivating than use the same course book activities. We know this is a special course. And why? How come? Because this is more effective than the teacher give the students a list of vocabulary and force students to memorizing it. That's really bored or boring activity, right? Am I right? All right. And then the lexis of poetry has many possible meanings. This gives the students the chance to learn more words, the synonym and or the antonym for the same word. This means for the one word we learn a lot. And then we look at Brewster, Liz, and Girard from 1992 over several vocabulary techniques that teachers can use when teaching lexical items to their students. This include using object. These techniques assist students to connect the word with meaning. And then when teachers bring real object or using visual aids to demonstrate the meaning of the words in the classroom, this aid learners to link the word with picture and help them to memorize the words by heart. That's right. By heart is more effective. When you are doing something by your heart, that's make a really better result for you. Okay, now let's go to the second and third lines. Okay, let's look at the pictures. To take us lands away, nor any courses like a page. And from that, we how many vocabularies and how many synonyms that we have? A lot. We can see courses mean a swift, a strong horses. That is mean no matter how faster, nimble, and elegant a horse, you won't find any horses as swift as page of poetry. Of prancing poetry, these travers made the poor stake. Prancing means walk in an energetic way, and then with more movement. Traverse means journey or pathway. Prancing usually used on a horse's movement in energetic way that have a relation with a course's meanings. And traverse in line 5 means no matter you rich or poor, anyone can take this journey. This journey means read a book or literary works. Okay, next lines. With the oppress of toll, how frugal is the chariot that bears the human soul. All right, toll means the burden of paying fares, and frugal means inexpensive, modest. This term is related with the line 5. There is anyone can join this journey. It doesn't cost any. This doesn't cost any money to read, and it describes a person like a burden hunter that's very careful with their money and how lavishly and spender the literature itself, but frugal. All right, wow, we have finished this poem, and do you agree with me now? Okay, how many vocabularies that you have learned today? That's really a lot, right? And then can you imagine why poetry is really helpful in learn language? You can feel it by read this poem and analyzing the meaning. And you can we learn a lot of meaningful language just by 8 lines, and you can stay enjoy it. That's really amazing. Okay, let's look at the third points. All right. Pronunciation is very important element in English language, which helps students to communicate and understand others accurately. And pronunciation means the way in which a word is uttered. Pronunciation refers to the act of or a result of producing the sound of speech, including articulation, stress, and intonation, often with reference to same standards or correctness of acceptability. And pronunciation term is classified into 2 types: segmental features and suprasegmental features. So suprasegmental features which go beyond the sounds such as stress, intonation, and rhythm. Okay, let's analyze one by one. So stress refers to the emphasis that falls on particular words or words and not others. The arrangement of stress within a poem is the foundation of poetic rhythm. And look at intonation. Refers to the tone that appears while falling and rising the voice in speaking or reacting. Stress and intonation we can discuss more further in rhythm. And now, what is rhythm? Rhythm refers to the beat of the poem, which refers to stressed and unstressed syllable. Let's look at the poetry now. Okay, there is no frigate like a book. It's a short, simple poem written as a single 8-line stanza or octet. And octet also breaks down into the 4-line stanzas or quatrains, which take the form of ballad stanza. This means they use common matter and ABCB rhyme schemes. Rhyme schemes can you look at the end of the lines of the words in the end, right? Here the first quatrain marvels at the transporting magic of literature, and the second quatrain delight in how cheap books are, considering their powers. And one says this compact poem feels like a little nugget that reader can eat one bite. On the other hand, it's doing exactly the expansive magic trick it describes. It managed to fit a grand imagine of sailing ship, prancing horses, and splendid chariot into a tiny space. And let's look at the lines. Here, between iambic 3-meter lines of 4 iambs metrical fit with a da-dum rhythm, and iambic 3 meters line of 3 iambs. Let's look at the lines 1 and 2. There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away. That's a dadum rhythm or iambic tetrameter. You can see like in the rhythm. Sorry, in the rhyme. Okay. And next, let's look at the rhyme. The rhyme refers to the repetition of the similar sound in 2 or more words. We can see the simile here. You can wondering where the simile here. Okay, the simile here, we can look at the first lines. There is no frigate like a book. Because we know this line is compared to things they are Frigate and the book. The author wants to show nothing a ship or frigate can get you anywhere you want faster than a book. No matter how agile it is, still not as good as a book. And what else? Yeah, nor any courses like a page. This is line is compared to think they are courses and a page. This sounds like no matter how fast, strong, nimble, or elegant your horses you can find, you won't find one that compares as sweet as a page of poetry. Wow, that's really great. And let's look of the alliteration. The alliteration here I see in the fourth lines, praising poetry. This show a repetition of consonant P sounds in the same lines. Wow. And let's look at the, according to Ahmad, 2014 indicates that learners can learn the accurate pronunciation of words along with, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Into Ahmad to 2014 indicates that the learners can learn the accurate pronunciation of words along with intonation and rhyming patterns either by listening or by reacting. Okay, we cannot stop right there. We have 1 point again, improve their motivation and creativity. And okay, we cannot stop right there. We have one just last points, the important points. There is improve their motivation and creativity of the students. All right. Teaching and learning English as a foreign language faces several problems which allow teachers to rethink of a new method and techniques that suit their students. One of these problems is motivation. Most teachers have difficulty of keeping their students motivated during the classes. Let's look according to Lowen and Reinders, 2011. Define motivation as a psychological construct that refers to the desire and incentive that an individual has to engage in a specific activity. And using a poetry as an authentic material helps students to be an active and dynamic learners in the learners, their thought and feelings. And using poetry as a source of teaching and learning English increases both of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation to learn the language. More appropriately, science poetry explore universal topics like childhood, death, love, loneliness, and etc. Learners become more interested as these themes are more interesting than a traditional text that found in the books, as learners experience at least one of them in their lives. Okay, and what about a creativity? Okay, after students have analyzed a poetry or even some poetry, students can make their own literary works by their own creativity. And we know in art, nothing wrong and right here. The students can expressing and transferring their imagination, feelings, emotion, and elaborate the language to make a poetry. As in Miss Surya and Miss Ari do in their learning process, they allow the students to express their thought freely and not force their students to do tight rules because they know every student have a different ability and different creativity. And arts such as poetry never get boundaries. Group the opinion about learning poetry is a difficult thing relates with the first statements. Okay, I think that's all, but I will conclude my statements. Believes that poetry is more suitable than other literary genre due to the following characteristic. They are the first is poetry sometimes is short in terms of length, in contrast to short stories, novel, and plays, which will help both teacher and students to handle the limited time. In addition, poetry is memorable and enjoyable as it is a source of amusement, as well as poetry tackles different themes such as love, hatred, human nature, friendship, politics, and economy that students are familiar with or even are interested. And therefore, poetry is more, what is that? More applicable to all levels, ranging from beginners to advanced, and for all ages, young learners to adults and all classes. Oh my, I think you agree with me now. Okay, okay, I think that's all from me. I hope you all learn a lot of this poetry and get a lot of benefit from this. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.